Hey guys, this is Daniel Cutright, host of the Winning Mentality podcast. Just wanted to take a minute before we get into the show today and say thank you to all of the listeners, your continual support. It's so much appreciated. And we're actually in the process now of looking for sponsors for the Winning Mentality podcast, which is exciting. And so if you want to get the word out about your brand, product, or event, we have some phenomenal guests coming up soon. You can reach out to me via email. It's cutrightpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, cutrightpodcast@gmail.com. And we can find a way to work together to tap into our network of loyal listeners to keep the show going strong. Support comes from listeners like you. So thank you again for your continued support, encouragement, and sharing each episode to spread these awesome stories and positivity they deliver. If you enjoy the show, you can show your support by donating via Venmo to username @winningmentality. You can think of Venmo as like a virtual tip jar. And so these donations will go towards hosting and production expenses, whether it's $1 a month or $10 a month. It's all appreciated and helps keep the show going strong. And so think of it like once a month, you're buying me, the host, a cup of coffee. I love coffee and I love doing the show. And so it's all very much appreciated. Even if it's just a one-time donation, that's awesome too, and can help us continue to grow the show and leverage additional resources to keep bringing on quality guests and inspire more and more people. And so if you decide to donate, feel free to also include a short message and let me know why, whether you just enjoy the conversations or maybe there was a specific episode that impacted you in some way, shape, or form. I would love to hear about it. Last thing before we get into the interview, I'm always appreciative of the listeners who take the time to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. These reviews and ratings help new listeners find the show and also let future sponsors know what the listeners like you think. Thanks to everyone who recently shared an episode on their Instagram and Twitter as well. Tag me and the guests from that week, and I'll do my best to reshare. So again, thank you for all the support. Now let's get to it. Hey guys, and welcome back to the show in today's episode of Winning Mentality. My name's Daniel Cutright, your host, and excited to have our guest today joining, Mr. Chris Stockel. Chris, how are you, man?
Doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on, brother. Really appreciate it. And I'm excited about this conversation. And I think this piggybacks actually well off of the last episode I did. We've kind of been in this vein of some stuff around mental health, but also some of the entrepreneurial topics. And I think you're going to hit both of these when you're talking about Mind Body Project. And just to give our audience a little background, this is a company that you started a couple of years back. And I actually had a chance to go to your studio when I was in New York City and take one of your classes. And I'm all about anything in the fitness space, anything in the mindfulness space. And you found a way to couple both of these into Mind Body Project. And so I'm going to let you talk a little bit about how that started today. And we'll get into some of your entrepreneurial journey. We'll get into some of the topics, maybe around the mental health side of things. But I think this is going to be a great conversation. I enjoyed getting to chat with you a little bit a couple of weeks ago and just felt like we really connected. So once again, thanks for being on. And I know the audience is going to get a lot out of this.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks again for having me. Love to be here with you. Yeah, so a little bit about Mind Body Project and who we are. So it's a new fitness concept, a group fitness concept that I started a couple years ago, where we have a 50-minute class, 50. The first 5 minutes are a guided meditation led by the instructor. The next 40 minutes are high intensity interval training using your body weight, dumbbells, and TRX suspension trainers. And then the final 5 minutes of class are a meditation as well. So that's the 50 minutes in a nutshell right there. With the idea being that we can deliver on both the physical fitness component that people are looking for, as well as adding a mindfulness meditation practice into that experience to help address some mental health needs of our clientele.
Yeah, it's awesome. I took your class, like I mentioned, and it's the first that I've seen of a concept like this that's really set up the way that yours is, with, kind of that mindfulness quiet period in the class, and then 40 minutes of just kicked my butt. I mean, I was completely gassed by the end of this class, and I've taken a lot of fitness classes. But it was awesome, anchoring too with the mindfulness. And I felt like, a lot of times when I'll come out of fitness classes, you're still so jazzed up and juiced up. And then I'll find that I don't even properly cool down a lot of the times. And I just go right back into my day. And I felt like it was a great chance just to kind of reset. And I walked out of there just feeling so refreshed. It was awesome.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think you kind of hit our intentions right on the
Yeah.
head. So the thought behind having the 5-minute bookended meditations is first to properly arrive in the space and settle into the space. So kind of leaving behind whatever happened before you arrived at the studio, whether it was a crazy subway ride or you had to run from work and get to the studio and you're kind of all over the place. Getting you to just settle in, do some deep breathing, really kind of center yourself before you embark on what is a very challenging workout. And then on the flip side, at the end of the workout with the final meditation, like you said, I have the same feeling in lots of group fitness classes that I've taken where it's go, go, go. You're really busting your butt the whole class. And then it's a very quick, maybe 1 minute or sometimes 2 minute sort of stretch and cool down. And I leave feeling like I was exhausted and it was a great workout usually, but like I'm jittery and I'm like
Yeah.
overwired a little bit. So, that meditation at the end of class allows people to really kind of absorb what they just went through and show some appreciation to themselves and to their bodies for getting through it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I find that as I get older, I need more of that, kind of like easing in and then cooling down properly, bringing that heart rate back down slowly. And so, yeah, love the concept. And you guys are right in New York City, correct?
Yes, yeah. So
Oh,
we're in the Chelsea neighborhood of New
yep.
York City, 23rd Street and 7th Avenue for anyone who's familiar.
Yeah, so you're dealing with a very fast-paced population up there as well, which is, great for any. And I know a lot of us move very fast-paced, but especially
Sure.
that population, very great to kind of help people slow down a little bit.
Yeah, I mean that was one of my goals in starting this whole concept was, you know, there is such a hustle and bustle in New York and in plenty of other places as well. But how often do these people take 5 minutes, 10 minutes to just sit with themselves, close their eyes, and focus on their breath? You
Yeah.
know, I've been a meditator for quite some time, and plenty of people know that about me. I speak about it quite a bit. And I've heard so many people, friends of mine even, who say, I wish that, I wish that I had the time to meditate, but I don't. But those same people, I know they go to the gym every day. So I was trying to kind of kill two birds with one stone in that sense, where it's like, you're going to get an amazing workout, and we'll also give you that mindfulness component.
Yeah, that's really good too. Cause and, I'll have conversations with people sometimes that they're like, well, it's so hard to focus my mind or like to just not think about anything. And so, I think for people that are first starting to get into meditation, having a little bit of guidance there is also helpful. And like you
Totally.
said, if you can build it into their schedule, and then I feel like, for me, at least when I kind of started meditating, I needed that guidance at first, and then I could start to navigate more on my own. So I feel like a great entry point for people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. We try to make it accessible for all levels. So if you've never meditated before in your life, this is a great place to start because you have someone walking you through every step of the way. And if you're someone who knows what you're doing, we also give you enough space to sort of, when I say space, I mean like quiet time for you to do your own practice and have your own time.
Yeah. Well, let's take a step back here too, and let's talk
Sure.
about how you started Mind Body Project, because you came from the corporate world, if I'm not mistaken. Like you were doing pretty well, maybe some digital marketing work, and you were doing
Yep.
pretty well in that space. But what's interesting, one of the things somebody asked me recently is they said, "What's a big thing that a lot of your guests have in common?" And I said all of them just took action. They were able to overcome that fear of actually acting on an idea. And I think you're an incredible example of this, because you had it all put together, like in the job, doing well. And I think there's a lot of people that'll relate to this, that they have great jobs, but they've always wanted to venture out on their own. but you're one of the rare few that actually did it. So talk about that, kind of why you started, why this idea, and how that came about for you.
Yeah, sure. So, so I previously I had a long career, about a decade in digital media. So I worked at a number of different startup media companies, working mostly in a sales leadership position. And like you said, I was doing really well. I was certainly making a good living. Um, However, I personally have struggled with anxiety for my whole life, and my within my former career, I was still dealing with my own anxiety and still trying to find ways to relieve my anxiety. So I've always been an athlete. I played a lot of basketball growing up, and that quickly turned into more of like a fitness passion for me as I got a little bit older. And I continued to do plenty of fitness after college and while I was in my career. And I discovered high intensity interval training, and I was like, whoa, like I thought I was fit before I took this first HIIT class, and this kicked my butt pretty good. So I got really into HIIT training. And then separately, I had heard about meditation from a friend, and specifically transcendental meditation, which for anyone who isn't aware, it's a very kind of entry level, I would say, accessible form of meditation that's very basic and easy to learn. So I took a course in that and I loved it. And again, this was all in an effort to address my own mental health challenges. So I had these two different disciplines that I loved so much. And I truly believe in the mind body connection.
Yeah.
So I was still going about my career, but I had this itch. How can I combine my passion for meditation with my passion for fitness? And once I kind of arrived at the idea of a group fitness class that combines both, it was off to the races for me. I could no longer focus my attention on my current career. My mind was really elsewhere, constantly kind of refining and iterating and brainstorming and writing things down about what would soon become Mind Body Project.
That's awesome. So there's a couple pieces I want to hit on in there too. And you talked
Sure.
about how you got into the transcendental meditation, started doing that.
Yep.
And I'm assuming it goes without saying that this helped your anxiety for one, but from a physical standpoint, did you notice any, benefit just physically as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. So from a mental perspective, what meditation did for me is it allowed me to stop living so much in the future. I was always like, anxiety is very much, being concerned about what's coming next, right?
Yeah.
So that was kind of my issue. And meditation allowed me to just focus on my breathing, which allows you to feel very present and in the moment. And that was something that I hadn't really felt much before, like, believe it or not, unless I was like playing sports or doing something that, you know, requires my full undivided attention.
Yeah.
So from a mental perspective, feeling that sense of presence, it was huge. Physically, when I started meditating, it was very interesting. I started sleeping much better.
Hmm.
I used to have a lot of trouble falling asleep. So sleeping, I would do a meditation before bed and it would really help to knock me out, And then also I felt that my attention span at work was definitely improved, my ability to focus for longer periods of time. So there were a number of different positive impacts that I felt once I started to get on a very strict meditation regimen.
That's awesome. Yeah, the last episode I did, I had my friend Brittany McGowan on, and we actually got on that topic because she's big in the mental health space of how so many times people think that like your mental health and your physical health are these two separate entities.
Yeah,
And they're so much more intertwined than that. So
yeah,
much of this affects the rest of this and vice versa. Which again is why I was so fascinated by the concept of Mind Body Project, because I think that's so much more important than people realize. And like you said, a lot of times people will use, and I know this as a runner, that's my background.
Yep.
People talk about the runner's high, and you go out because that endorphin release and that physiological response, it puts you into this, you're just kind of in this flowy meditative state, if you will. And the idea of what you're saying with meditation is that you can accomplish that same thing through meditation, where you get a lot of these athletes, that's the only way they've ever known how to try to achieve that. But that I think has like a certain ceiling to it as well.
Yep.
And so I think what you're doing, and that was, it's been big for me over the last, like I said, year or so, of being able to tap into that other side, the mental health side and the meditative side, like, is so huge for people.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it really is. And, more and more as mental health, I feel like every day, every week, every month, like, it begins to be more destigmatized, like the conversation about mental health. I was just, for instance, watching, the NBA playoffs the other day, and they had a commercial about the NBA partnering or having like a major initiative around mental health, and having different, professional players talking about their anxiety or depression that they've dealt with. So the more it's coming into the mainstream, of course, I think that, that was sort of something that I was trying to address as well, because I saw that trend happening as well, which is certainly positive for everyone if we can have an open dialogue about it.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people hear mental health and they automatically think it's like this heavy negative connotation, just this heavy topic, and it doesn't have to be. When you think about your physical health, people get excited about eating well, people get excited about fitness. You can feel the same way about your mental health. It doesn't have to be all this, just heavy topics, but it can be this topic around how do we find peak performance with our mental health? How do we optimize how clearly we're thinking, and how relaxed we are, and those sorts of things. So I think like spinning the perspective on how we view mental health is, to your point, really important.
I think that's such a good point. And I completely agree that, some people do kind of think that the conversation around mental health is going to be something that might be a little bit rattling or uncomfortable to discuss. But I more and more people who are in my life, at least, that I surround myself with, I can say, hey, I've been like super anxious lately, not sure why, but here's what I'm doing to try and address it. And most people respond with like, how can I be there for you? Or, you want to do something together to try and like, put some more pep in your step, or whatever it might be.
That's huge. Yeah. And I think that oftentimes when people don't talk about their mental health, what the trap is that you feel very lonely, and you get in this box, you don't feel like you can share anything with anybody. And it's like that community. And when you, can kind of get out of just your own shell, like that's what's going to help with that feeling of loneliness. And you can be more open about it and start to actually like heal in those ways.
Absolutely. I think that there's something cathartic about just sharing with anyone about what's happening internally with you. Yeah,
totally. So let's shift back to kind of more the entrepreneurial side of things for a second too. And you had this idea for Mind Body Project. It was this constant burn, which I think that's always really good to pay attention to.
Yeah.
And then you got started in, was it 2019 or 2020? Help me remember.
2019.
2019. Okay. So right before this big thing called COVID happened, you decide to launch off into the fitness industry. So just talk about getting started, because you had gotten this place, basically you got your space ready. You had all your trainers hired. You were ready to roll. And this was like right before COVID hit. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we've all heard entrepreneurs talk about how you need to really be adaptable and have the ability to pivot. And boy, were we tested right out of the gate. So yeah, I started working on this entire concept in 2019. I had a physical space for the studio picked out, lease signed. I had my instructors all lined up. The space had been built. We were ready to launch in May of 2020. And unfortunately, in March of 2020, so 2 months prior to our anticipated opening, COVID hit. And, when I, of course, I probably don't even have to elaborate too much on how many questions there were that were just difficult or impossible to answer. Like, when will we be able to open? Will we be able to open?
Yeah.
How will it look when we do open? So, it was, we went dark for a full year. I mean, we just weren't able to open based on, COVID protocols within New York City. So we were supposed to open in May of 2020. We ended up opening exactly 1 year later in May of 2021. And, it was a very trying year.
Yeah.
It was, of course, I had to have optimism, because without that, I mean, it would be a pretty bleak situation. But I held on to hope, and I kept my team engaged, and I made sure that we were still getting together, whether it was just for lunch or a beer, or in the studio to continue training and keeping everything fresh in our minds. But fortunately, I really had incredible buy-in from the instructors,
Mhm.
because they really loved the concept, and they loved the combination of the mental health and physical fitness in one experience. I think that that was a big driver of us keeping everyone on board and being able to weather that 1 year storm that was COVID.
That's huge. I mean, that speaks volumes to people, like you said, the buy-in of people staying with you for that year in, one of the cities in the US that was arguably hit the hardest, right?
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
people could have gone and done a million other things, but that's big. I mean, did you find that out of that year, it made you guys stronger coming out of that? Were you able to refine on certain things, or
Yep.
was there that silver lining that you found in that?
Yeah, so I think that it did two things. It allowed us to continue to refine and test the concept further. So
Yeah.
we had in many, many, many trial classes, and with very small groups, and it was all socially distanced and masked up and all that. But we were able to test the experience more thoroughly than if we had opened in 2020. And we collected feedback, and we made adjustments, and it was all like really good actionable stuff. So that was one benefit or silver lining to it. And then the other one was, I mean, we were forced to be adaptable, like I
Yeah.
said, and be able to really roll with the punches and deal with uncertainty in general. Whereas when we actually opened the business, like, making adjustments was part of our DNA already. You know what I mean?
That's big. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you had mentioned to me too, which I thought this was interesting, that you feel like Mind Body Project at this point is still proof of concept. Like, you're still testing, you're still refining. And I love that message, because I tell people all the time, so many people, I think they won't start an idea because they think they have to have everything figured out or perfect before they go. And you are in this constant mode of learning and tweaking and fine tuning. And that's entrepreneurship. That's anything that you're going to do. And so many people, I use this line all the time, but get paralysis by analysis. It's like they don't move because they're trying to get it all perfect. But at this point, like, I went in there, I was like, this is awesome. And you're still telling me, hey, this is still proof of concept. We're still refining, we're still getting better. So speak
Yep.
to that a little bit too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a completely original concept. It hasn't
Yeah.
been done before. It would be one thing if we were, a new spin studio or a new boxing studio, where the blueprint is kind of there for you already, and you can make whatever, differentiator adjustments that you'd like. But with our concept, I mean, it's all brand new.
Yeah.
So the proof of concept period, to me, it started out of the gate, and it continues today. I'll probably say that it's no longer proof of concept once we have sustained profitability over, a long stretch of time. And then I'll say, okay, this works, and it's probably scalable, and we can, start to, look at maybe opening a second location or whatever we decide to do from there. But we are constantly tinkering with the delivery of the meditation, with the messaging during meditation, with what movements are we helping people to learn and practice and perfect? Should we use more TRX, or should we use more dumbbells, or should it be half and half? Or, what about music taste and volume? And we are constantly tinkering, and honestly, it makes it fun. It really
Yeah.
does. Like you get to experiment a lot, and it's also empowering for my instructors, because I'm the guy who's like, if you have an idea, like, talk to me about it, let's try it. So it
Yeah.
allows everyone to be creative and kind of be the their own master in terms of what they're delivering in the experience.
And so as you guys, yeah, that's awesome. As you guys are shaping and continually refining, you feel like it's a pretty big team effort as far as everyone that's involved is bringing ideas to the table. And maybe are there some people on your team that are better in some areas, whether it's the marketing side or different things like that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Everyone on my instructor team has their own skill set and their own interest levels in, say, doing something that's outside of teaching a class.
Yeah.
Certain people have raised their hands looking for expanded roles and helping out with managing the studio or with doing some marketing or social media stuff for us. And others really want to stay in their lane, and they're focused on just being the best instructor they can be, which all of that is totally fine.
Yeah. Have you learned anything big about yourself in this process, going from being in corporate America to more of into that business owner, entrepreneurial vein of things?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, one is that I can't ever see myself going back.
Love it.
That is one thing that I've thought about, and you never know what will happen with your your startup. But I think that it's pretty clear in my mind that I'll never go back to a corporate job. That I'll probably try something else entrepreneurial in the future.
Why do you say that?
There's a certain freedom that I've experienced that is like, it's really game changing for me. I can kind of see, even though I work more hours now than I did previously in my corporate jobs, it's more on my terms. I can work
Yeah.
at my own pace, on my own schedule, and I'm building something that is truly what I'm passionate about, what I believe in, rather than, I've been passionate about other jobs that I've had in the past, but it wasn't mine.
That's big. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
Where do you see, just what's, when you think about the vision of Mind Body Project moving forward, where do you hope to kind of take this next? What's one of the next steps for you?
Yeah. Yeah. So what I'd like to do is, first, again, prove the concept. And then I would like to open 2 more locations in 2 major cities, one being Miami, and the other one that I'm looking at is LA.
Nice.
So I think that both of those markets would really embrace the concept that we've created. I think that it's a fertile ground for something that combines the mental health component with the physical fitness. And then I think from there, I think that these days you have to have some kind of virtual or digital product that's complementary to your in-person experience, so that you can, open up your potential audience, like, basically, infinitely.
Yeah, totally. I want to ask this too. And I think you come across, because I know what people are going to think as they listen to this, like you come across as a guy that's pretty sharp business wise. Like
Thanks.
you figured some things out, and just your demeanor is this even keeled demeanor too, which I think probably serves you really well. And maybe that's the mindfulness piece coming in too there. But where would you say that you kind of got some of that entrepreneurial knack from? Did you pick up things from the corporate world? Did you have people that mentored you along the way that really helped you out? Or, what do you think attributes to that?
Yeah, so I would say it's twofold. One is my father is an entrepreneur, and he's always been kind of my mentor and my hero, so to speak. And um, I was always amazed with him how when he was running his business, you could tell that shit might be hitting the fan, but he was able to stay so cool and level headed about it. And I was like, man, I want to be like that one day, because
Nice. Yeah.
I feel like I'd be in somewhat of a panic um, from an outsider's perspective. I also had some amazing managers and mentors in my previous career. Again, there's something about having someone who is always there for you in a supportive way, like someone who manages you, and they're unflappable.
Yeah.
Like no problem is too big to handle. They don't fly off at the handle from much, and they're able to be that cool, calm, collected person in the room. So I've seen it live and in person so many times throughout my career, and that was a trait that I really wanted to adopt. And I think that I have, because I mean, most people can imagine, like, as an entrepreneur, you have unpredictable problems and issues and challenges that come up on a daily basis, and you just got to do the best you can with them. Like, I can't sit here and say I have the answer to all of them. Sometimes something will come up and I'm like, I don't have the first idea of where to start with this. Never saw this one coming, but I'm going to do the best I can. I mean, and
Yeah.
that's the attitude that you kind of have to have. Like, it's a learn as you go experience. You and I talked about this a bit last time we connected, but it's, you know, there are entrepreneurs that I listen to speak, and they sound like they've got it all figured out. And I'm like, hey, if that's their style, and it works for them, awesome. But for me, I'm a little bit more vulnerable about the
Yeah.
experience that it is. And I feel comfortable saying, like, was I ready to start this business? Probably not. I mean, I had confidence in my own leadership abilities. I loved the concept and I was passionate about it. So there was no lack of motivation, but did I have all the proper career experience to be launching this business? No, but I made it work. I learned as I went along, made plenty of mistakes, and I tried to do the best that I can. And I think that, like you preach about, I mean, taking that leap and thinking that you need to have every single piece figured out and be ready for every element, you'll be waiting a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. And all of those blunders and the slip ups or the things that you step back and laugh at, those are
Yeah.
things, those are things that you file away as experience and you learn in future situations. And the thing that I always think about too is if ever I'm going through something challenging, whether it's what I'm working on or something in my personal life, it's like, this is something that I can also help somebody else with down the road. That when they run into, oh, yeah, I've seen this before, I've been through this situation before, now I can help you. And, you're right. I mean, like, yeah, if there's the guys that get on stage and, it sounds like everything was great and people see the end product, it's like, I think that almost paints an unrealistic picture. It's why I always like to take a step back and like, let's rewind 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 15 years and see the lead up. And I think that we all go through different experiences or we're put in different jobs where maybe we don't understand why we're there at the time. But I think when you view those things the right way, it's all of those things shape, who you are and where you get to. It's funny. I got interviewed recently, and my friend Kelly, who was interviewing me, she asked, she said, "Do you have any regrets?" And or she said, "What's your biggest regret?" And I had to think, and I was like, nothing really comes to mind for me when you ask that question. And I said, and the reason being is that I I don't hold on to things, and I think that we learn from everything. Yeah, are there things that, looking back, I probably would have done it a little differently? Sure. But do I regret it? No, because that makes you who you are. And I think when you think about an entrepreneurial journey and just growth as an individual, all those things are so important. And I think your story becomes a lot more powerful down the road when you can share, like you said, those points of vulnerability, because that's what's going to help more people, right?
Absolutely. And I think it humanizes the entire experience.
Yeah,
You know, I go to my team and I say, hey, we've got this challenge. Like, I don't have the answer. What do you guys think? You know, and like, that's empowering for them. Like,
totally.
you know, it brings everyone closer. And yeah, it allows everyone to have some input into what's the solution. Let's talk it through together, because you're all smart people with your own ideas. Let me hear them, you know.
That's such a big leadership quality too. It's amazing to me if you look at certain managers even, who it's like they always think that they have to be the answer person, or they never
Yeah,
want to try to let you see areas where they're weak in. And
sure.
the fallacy that they're living under is that the people on their team don't already know their weaknesses anyway. Like, they already know that you're not as strong in that area. Like, why not just open up that conversation? And like you said, that's so much more empowering. And that actually is going to elevate your leadership when you're leading that team, because they're like, hey, we know that, Chris is willing to rely on us. We know that he's, opening up and being vulnerable. Hey, that's going to allow me to be more vulnerable too. And you're going to build a stronger culture that way. That's huge.
Absolutely. I think that, like you said, that's a big culture builder. And then the other thing that I'm really bullish about is, as the entrepreneur, like, no task is too small for me. I'll do every single task inside that place. If it's, taking out the trash, unclogging a toilet, you name it. And
Yeah.
like, I do it. Um, and it's not to be a martyr. It's because I want to be able to do every single operation inside of that business, so that I can help to show my staff how to do every single thing inside the business. And I'm always able to, I can get it done myself. And also, like, the staff sees me doing it, and it creates camaraderie. It creates a small ego type of
Hmm.
workplace that I think goes such a long way.
That's big. And I'm sure you get other people stepping up when they see that example to say, hey, don't worry about it. I'll take care of this one, or I'll pick up this one, or I'll do this. And then versus the culture where it's just like, well, that's not my responsibility.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
big.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll wrap up with this too, but I don't know if you have maybe like one or two just like really cool testimonies from people that have come to Mind Body Project, or just feedback that made you think, wow, like, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. So I've got a couple. Um, One is, we just had two different members of ours reach the 100 class mark. So
Nice.
they've come to 100 classes, which is like a huge milestone. It was awesome for them, amazing for us too. Neither one of them had ever meditated before,
Oh,
in their lives, and now they attribute so much of their personal happiness and their peace of mind, they attribute to not just Mind Body Project, but having a meditation practice. They've learned how important meditation is to them, so they can come to class and do it there. But they also, meditation is portable, so
probably.
they've added meditation into their life. And I mean, for me, that gives me goosebumps hearing things like that, because that's like such a cool kind of influence to have over someone, that's like, could help them for the rest of their life. It's amazing. So that's one that I think of. And then in our early days, we had a number of people who came to the studio, and they were young, and like, they were college students, and they would come to the studio, and they were new to New York City, and I introduced them to each other, and then all of a sudden they're all going out together on Friday night and Saturday night, and they made friends. They all are from different parts of the world, and they've all become like this tight-knit group of friends. So to kind of see that come to fruition through the community that we've built at Mind Body Project is very, very humbling and cool.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, when I
Yeah.
was there, I had some great conversations just with other people taking the class and the instructor and the two girls working the front desk. Like, it was just, everybody was awesome there. One of my favorite parts about your studio was the hammock out front. I
Yeah.
passed out face down for a second after that class. But just the whole thing, like the aesthetics there, and I was thoroughly impressed. So
Thanks, man.
but yeah, this has been awesome, Chris, just kind of going through your story, and really appreciate you sharing some insights and mindset. And I will tell everyone that's listening to this, New York City friends especially, you got to go to Mind Body Project. You got to check it out. Follow these guys on Instagram. It's Mind Body Project, just on Instagram.
Mind Body Project NYC.
NYC, awesome. That's right. You set it up so that when you start your LA and your Miami studios, you're ready to roll. I love it.
There you go.
So awesome. Any kind of last tips for people, or?
I mean, last tip I can say is, you know, if you're thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, what I've said since I started is it's 90% grit and 10% glamour. So know that, you know, there's gonna be some pretty cool moments where you get to say you own your own business, or I get to do something like this and chat with you on a podcast, which is very cool. Yeah. 90% grit though. It's not all glamour.
Love it, man. Awesome. Well, Chris, really appreciate it again, man. We'll have to do this another time as well. So
thanks a lot, Daniel. I appreciate it. Keep up the good work.
All right, guys, listen to the show, share the show, give us a rating, and make sure you follow Chris. Make sure you tag us, repost, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks again.